Good morning, everyone. I hope you had a good weekend. I've been looking through what you've posted in the peer review discussion, so make sure you have a draft up there and you've given feedback to a classmate ASAP if you haven't already, because for your literacy narrative, draft 2 is due February 25th. So in order to revise that draft 1, you should have feedback from someone answering the questions about your draft that were in the workshop script. So you have something to work with to revise. Because in reality, revision is mostly, it's not just fixing your writing, it's streamlining what you're doing to meet the goals of the genre. So in the case of the literacy narrative, your goal, or to use the language of rhetorical analysis, your purpose is to explain to your chosen audience what your writing experience has been before and what that means for you now. And so moving forward, what's going to happen? What do you project will happen with your writing? So upload draft 2 to the assignments section of Sakai by the evening of February 25th. Same sort of submission deadline. It's midnight, just before midnight. And if you notice on the back of the rubric, I actually give you points for what you've done for draft 1. So if you haven't looked at that, check it out, because it's a large chunk of the writing process grade I give you. Since I know when you write, it takes many drafts and you develop your ideas over time, I reward you with those points. So check that out if you haven't printed out the entire assignment sheet or read the entire PDF. I do this also because when you turn in your portfolio, you have to turn in, sorry about my cat, when you turn in your portfolio, you have to turn in a previous draft with the polished draft. So now that you have some more, you've actually started an assignment with me, you have a little more context for this. So this draft 2 of your literacy narrative that I will give you feedback on within 2 weeks of the due date, you turn that draft in with my comments and the track changes with the polished draft that you turn in when the portfolio's due on April 28th. And that's your third draft where you've revised based on your peers' comments and my comments. And if you don't have those early drafts, I have to tell you, you are not going to pass the portfolio. So make sure you're participating now. We're in week 5, so everything should start to feel more routine of the Thursday and Sunday posting, and then my Monday videos and announcements, and the announcements I post throughout the week depending on things I notice that should be addressed. So we are really getting into writing at this point, which is very exciting. So anything else that you should know about the submission draft? Yes. So there are reflection questions in the assigned reading discussion. And so these questions function as a way for you to explain what you've learned and what you've achieved in writing this draft for the class. And part of that is because for the last assignment, you're writing a reflective memo. And so it's becomes habit to think about your thinking and reflect on your writing. I give you these discussion questions. In face-to-face classes, I usually assign a cover letter with each assignment, but I found that it's easier to separate that letter submission and just ask you to post in the discussion forum. So I'm actually going to read you an example of a cover letter which addresses the two reflective questions that are in the assigned reading discussion. And again, this is just a sample and is to demonstrate how you can address the learning outcomes you've achieved in writing the literacy narrative. So I will also post it, I'll attach it as an attachment to my announcement so you can read it and see how this student wrote about their writing experience. And then you can take that information and apply it to your own writing when answering the assigned reading discussion questions. And so this letter is from a different assignment, but pay attention to how the student writes about their writing and also addresses the learning outcomes. My editorial experience. Writing this paper was a positive experience for me. I learned a lot about myself and how far I've come over the years. I'm proud to say I'm well on my way to being successful. While writing this paper, I used techniques like brainstorming and a little bit of free writing just to get my mind prepped for how I wanted to present this article. I also learned that I can use different pre-writing skills to better organize my ideas. Some of the learning objectives and outcomes that I was able to achieve in this process was analyzing my genre, which was an editorial. I was able to write for the appropriate audience, purpose, and stance. I had to develop a thinking process to understand the readings I used. I also went back to a writer's reference to make sure I had the proper purpose and audience. I intentionally picked my audience to be young teens so they would be able to take the evidence I wrote and make future decisions based off that, completely a motivational purpose. I read many website examples to help me organize my article. Also, background information on trade schools was found in places like tradeschools.net and tradeschools.org. These websites helped me get more of an understanding of what types of things were being taught within my profession. So that was the student's cover letter, and as you can see from what I read and then what you can look back on in the attachment I'll send out, they address specific learning objectives and they also address specific things they did to develop their own writing. And in this case, for the assignment, all the students wrote an editorial about where they are as a writer and what writing techniques they've used. And they chose a magazine to write for. So it's somewhat similar to the literacy narrative, but as an editorial, they actually had to go out and choose a magazine to write for. So now you have the information, some more context to get this second draft together. If you have any questions, as always, send me an email and I'll get back to you within 48 hours, but as many of you have probably noticed, I get back to you usually sooner than that. So that's it. I hope you have a great week, and I'm looking forward to reading those second drafts of your literacy narrative.